Yumenglong final moments at the hospital, so sad and heartbreaking. The video of Yumenglong's final car ride had already shattered the internet, but when security footage from the hospital surfaced, capturing his last moments alive, it broke the world all over again. The hospital corridor, drenched in harsh white light, became a stage of unbearable silence. Every sound, the distant heart monitor, the hurried footsteps of nurses, the frantic whisper of his name, felt amplified, frozen in the air like the breath before a scream. Fans said the clip didn't just show pain, it felt like pain itself. The arrival, 3:27 a.m. The ambulance screeched into the emergency bay. Inside, Yumenglong lay motionless, his chest faintly rising, his face pale as moonlight. Paramedics shouted codes, wheeling him toward the sliding doors, while the rain outside blurred everything into streaks of light and shadow. Stay with us, one medic whispered, pressing down on his chest, pumping, begging. But Yumenglong's lips barely moved. A ghost of a breath escaped, and those nearby swore he murmured a single word. Why, just like in the car. That same haunting question that had followed him into death now echoed through the hospital halls. The doctors' race against time. Inside Trauma Room 4, chaos met desperation. Machines beeped frantically as doctors surrounded his frail body. His pulse was weak. His skin had turned a shade no one could bear to see on someone who once lit up screens with life. Pressure dropping. Get me another line in. Don't let him go. Every voice was a battle cry. Every movement a plea. But there was something unnatural about it all. Something cold in the air. One of the nurses later confessed she felt a presence in that room. It wasn't just death, she said in tears during an interview. It was betrayal. You could feel it lingering around him. And she was right, because behind the curtain, two men in dark suits watched quietly. They weren't family. They weren't friends. They were there for the paperwork. The phone that wouldn't stop ringing. While doctors tried to save him, his phone, placed on the tray beside the bed, kept vibrating. Dozens of messages flashed across the screen. Menglong, please answer me. They know everything. Don't say a word. The final message came from a contact saved simply as L. If you survive this, you'll destroy us all. No one touched the phone after that. It just kept glowing silently beside him, its light pulsing like a fading heartbeat. The monitor's flatline. At 3:42 a.m., the monitor emitted that dreadful, flat tone that pierced through every heart in the room. Clear, shouted the doctor, charging the paddles. His body jerked. Once. Twice. Nothing. The nurse cried openly now, her tears dripping onto the sterile floor as the clock above the door seemed to stop ticking altogether. Come on, Menglong. Come on. But the line remained flat. The silence that followed was deafening. At 3:46 a.m., Dr. Zhou removed his gloves and whispered, Time of death, 3:46. The words echoed like a curse. The mysterious visitor. Minutes after the announcement, as the team left the room in silence, surveillance footage captured something chilling. A woman in a long beige coat entered through the back corridor. Her face was hidden under a hood. She moved straight toward the room, ignoring the nurses calling after her. She stopped beside Yumenglong's bed, reached out, and gently brushed a strand of hair from his forehead. Then, she whispered something inaudible to the cameras. But when the footage was enhanced by investigators later, one word could be read from her lips. Forgive. Within seconds, she turned and vanished into the night. No record existed of her signing in, and none of the security guards remembered seeing her leave. Fans online immediately linked her to the mysterious woman from the hidden audio leaks, the same voice who once said, Don't stop the car. If it was truly her, then she had come not to grieve, but to make sure he would never speak again. His mother's arrival. At 4:10 a.m., Yumenglong's mother arrived. She burst through the double doors barefoot, her cries echoing down the corridor. Where is my son? When she saw him on that bed, surrounded by tubes and silence, she froze. For a full minute, she didn't move. Then she collapsed onto the floor, clutching his lifeless hand, begging him to wake up like he used to after long filming nights. Wake up, Menglong. You always promised to call before sleeping. You promised. Doctors tried to console her, but nothing could reach her. Reporters later described that moment as the sound of a heart tearing itself apart. The candle that wouldn't go out. In the hallway outside the trauma room, a nurse placed a small candle beside the door, a tradition meant to honor the passing of a soul. But something strange happened. Despite the heavy air conditioning, the flame refused to flicker. It burned tall, unwavering, until the next morning. Even when several people tried to blow it out for safety reasons, it kept burning. Hospital staff later called it the candle that wouldn't die. Fans across the country replicated the act, lighting candles that burned overnight in front of posters, bus stops, and studio gates. The internet flooded with photos and one shared caption. If the flame lives, so does he. The doctor's confession. Weeks later, one of the attending doctors, identified only as Dr. Z, confessed during a private interview. We were told not to talk, not to ask questions about his condition or how he was brought in. But I'll never forget his eyes. They were open, he was aware. He was still fighting, even as they told us to stop. That confession sent shockwaves across the nation. Why would anyone want the doctors to stay quiet? What were they hiding? Soon after that leak, Dr. Z was reportedly transferred to a remote hospital in another province. He disappeared from the public eye completely. The hidden audio from the hospital room. As if the tragedy couldn't get darker, an anonymous whistleblower sent an audio clip to several journalists weeks later. It was recorded in Yumenglong's hospital room just minutes before he passed away. The tape captured faint breathing, machines beeping, and then two distinct voices. Voice 1, male, delete everything from his phone. Now. Voice 2, female, it's already done. He won't be waking up again. Then came the soft sound of the heart monitor. Beep, beep, beep. Flatline. That recording, once authenticated, confirmed the world's worst suspicions. Yumenglong's death wasn't just tragic, it was orchestrated. Fans turned the hospital into a shrine. The hospital where Menglong died has now become a sacred ground. Fans gather daily, leaving white lilies, handwritten letters, and origami cranes. Some even kneel in silence, tears running down their faces as they replay his old dramas on their phones. Outside the emergency doors, a massive banner hangs. You were light. They tried to dim you, but we'll keep you shining. Every night at 3:46 a.m., the time he was pronounced dead, the crowd lights candles and sings softly, creating a glow visible for miles. It's not just mourning. It's defiance. The nurse's secret photo. A few months after his death, a nurse released a photograph that changed everything again. The photo showed Menglong moments before being covered by the hospital sheet. His face looked peaceful, almost angelic. But if you looked closely, just behind him, reflected in the metal of the heart monitor, you could see a faint silhouette. It looked like someone standing in the corner of the room, a figure in a beige coat. The same woman from the earlier footage. Her presence there, moments after his death, confirmed every suspicion. The unanswered questions. Why was the ambulance delayed? Why were his vitals hidden from public reports? Who authorized those two strangers in suits? And who, exactly, was the woman in beige, the one he whispered, "Why?" to before taking his last breath? The government promised further investigation, but as months passed, silence returned. Still, the people refused to forget. The final recording. Then came the final twist. A small voice memo, found on Menglong's cloud backup days later, surfaced online. It was recorded 2 nights before the car ride. His voice was soft, tired, but eerily calm. If anything happens to me, don't believe what they say. You'll know the truth when you hear the silence. Those were his last recorded words. Fans realized what he meant. Silence, the same silence in the car, in the hospital, in the government's response. It wasn't emptiness. It was guilt. The hospital that never slept. The world thought they had seen it all when the first hospital video was released, but what most people didn't know was that there were more clips, more cameras, more secrets. Inside the ward, Time had stopped the moment Yumenglong's body was wheeled in. Nurses said the air felt heavier than usual, like grief itself was trapped in the vents. Every shadow stretched too long, every light flickered too slow, and every whispered prayer carried his name. A janitor who worked the night shift recalled hearing something strange. The lights above room 4 kept flickering, even after maintenance fixed them twice. And there was this smell, not of medicine, but burnt metal. I don't know how to explain it. Like something in that room wasn't supposed to exist. At exactly 3 a.m., the ward cameras caught something uncanny. While the doctors were preparing for the resuscitation, a faint knock echoed from the inside of the storage closet. No one paid attention at first, until the knock came again, 3 times, clear as thunder in the silence. One of the nurses screamed. When the door was opened, nothing was there except a folded hospital gown with his name tag still pinned to it. The one he had been wearing before the ambulance brought him in. The voice that called his name. A nurse named Lin Qing later confessed that she heard Menglong speak moments before the monitor flatlined. It was faint, like a sigh, she said through tears. But I swear he said my name. He whispered, Lin Qing, tell them I tried. And then the sound stopped. Her testimony was dismissed by officials, labeled as shock-induced hallucination. But days later, the hospital's CCTV microphone picked up an almost identical whisper at the same time. She claimed to have heard it. Tell them I tried. The world stopped when that clip leaked. Fans flooded the hospital gates, lighting candles and chanting, he tried, and they silenced him. The hidden visitor returns. Security footage from a corridor no one thought to check revealed something even darker. 2 hours after Yumenglong's death was declared, the woman in the beige coat, the same figure seen touching his forehead, returned. This time, she wasn't alone. She was accompanied by the same 2 men in suits who had been waiting in the corner during his final treatment. They carried a small silver briefcase and a sealed envelope. The woman looked calm, her movements precise. She handed the envelope to the head nurse, whispered something, and walked out. The head nurse fainted minutes later. When she woke, she couldn't remember what was said. But she remembered the envelope's color, red wax, stamped with an unfamiliar insignia shaped like a serpent biting its tail. When reporters asked about it, the hospital denied everything. But the camera timestamp didn't lie. The beating heart on the screen. On the morning of the vigil, one of the screens in the nurse's station suddenly flickered on. It showed room 4's monitor feed, the bed now empty, the machine silent. But for exactly 3 seconds, the heart monitor spiked. Beep, beep, beep. No one was in the room. No device was connected. And then the screen went black. Every nurse who witnessed it resigned that same week. The night of endless rain. Outside, thunder cracked across the city as news of his passing spread. Fans gathered in the thousands, holding candles in the pouring rain. The hospital looked like a lighthouse surrounded by waves of umbrellas and trembling lights. One old woman approached the glass doors holding a framed photo of Yumenglong. She pressed it against the glass and whispered, "You weren't supposed to go yet, child." Moments later, lightning struck a tree beside the hospital, splitting it in half. People gasped, many saying it was a sign. The heavens mourning too. Inside, a janitor caught sight of something through the reflection of the glass, a shadow sitting upright on the hospital bed, staring out the window toward the crowd. He quit his job the next morning. The director's unexpected visit. Hours before sunrise, the director of Yumenglong's last drama project arrived quietly, wearing a cap and mask. He avoided the reporters outside, but one insider leaked what he said to the nurse at the front desk. "I need to see him." He didn't finish his last line. The nurse refused, saying the body had already been moved. He nodded in silence, then muttered, "Then I guess the show never ends." When the nurse looked away for a second, he was gone, and on the hospital's security cameras, he never appeared entering or leaving. Some fans later speculated that he had been there only in spirit, tied to the project they shared, a story about betrayal, silence, and revenge. The eerie similarity between the drama script and Yumenglong's real-life fate became one of the most disturbing coincidences in entertainment history. The envelope that reappeared. Weeks later, the same red-sealed envelope was found in the hospital chapel, untouched, covered in dust. No one knew who placed it there. When the staff finally dared to open it, they found just one page inside, handwritten in blue ink. He was never meant to survive that night. The handwriting didn't match any of the staff's records. But one analyst pointed out that the letters H and M were written in a style identical to Yumenglong's signature from his old fan letters. Was it planted? Forged? Or had he written it himself long before that fateful night? No one could answer. The haunting of Room 4. After his death, Room 4 was permanently closed. But staff who worked nearby began reporting strange occurrences. The intercom would buzz randomly with static at 3:46 a.m., the time of death. The air conditioning unit would suddenly shift to warm, even though the system was centralized. The scent of his favorite cologne, cedar and white tea, would drift through the halls. One janitor swore he saw a reflection in the window, a man smiling faintly, whispering, "I'm free." The hospital administration replaced all the cameras in that wing, yet none stayed functional longer than a week. It was as if the room itself refused to forget. The global reaction. Across Asia, vigils multiplied. Fans painted murals outside production studios, depicting Menglong surrounded by white feathers, symbolizing peace. His hospital footage became one of the most viewed and discussed videos in history, sparking countless theories and debates. But amid the chaos, one thing remained constant: the sense that his story wasn't finished. That somewhere, beneath the layers of lies and silence, the truth was still breathing, waiting to rise. The whisper that ended the night. The final nurse to leave Room 4 that night, a woman named Xiao Yan,